the second chapter of St. John's Gospel, we hear one of the most famous narratives from the life of Jesus Christ our Lord, that of the wedding feast at Cana in Galilee. Our Lord is present at the wedding along with his mother and with his disciples. And Mary reports to him a fact, a disturbing fact. They have no wine. The wedding has run out of wine. And then she tells the servers, those facilitating the festivities of the wedding, do whatever he, Jesus, tells you. Do whatever Jesus tells you. Those are her instructions. And it happens that there are 6 stone water jars there for Jewish ceremonial washings, each holding 20 or 30 gallons of water. Jesus tells them, fill the jars with water. They're filled to the brim. And then he says, draw out some of the water and take it to the head waiter working at the wedding. They take it. The waiter tastes the water and discovers that the water has become wine. And he doesn't know where it's come from. He doesn't know the origin of this wine. So the head waiter calls the bridegroom and says to him, everyone serves good wine first. And when people have drunk freely, an inferior wine. But he says, complimenting the bridegroom, but you have kept the good wine until now. And then St. John, the author of this gospel, explains Jesus did this as the beginning of his signs at Cana in Galilee, and so revealed his glory. And his disciples began to believe in him. His disciples began to believe in him. So we see the literary structure of the narrative of the wedding feast of Cana as operating between 2 poles, between Our Lady, the Blessed Virgin Mary, telling the people to do whatever Jesus tells you. That's her instruction. Do whatever our Lord Jesus tells you. And it ends, the narrative ends with St. John, the author, explaining that at this moment the disciples began to believe in him. Belief, the theological virtue of faith, of course, is not a natural virtue. It's not an acquired virtue. It's not something that we can eke out by our own efforts, by our own energy, by our own resources. The act of believing in Jesus is a supernatural act, and as such, requires a supernatural cause, a supernatural agency, a supernatural formality coming from beyond our natural resources and our natural capacities, but received truly within our natural resources and capacities, our powers, transforming these natural resources and capacities, the powers of the human soul, and in the case of faith, in the act of supernatural belief, the intellect. No one can make themselves believe supernatural truths. And so it's very interesting that when our Lord performs this, the first of the signs that John highlights throughout his gospel, St. John points out it's at this moment that they begin to believe in him. However, it's the beginning of faith. Signs alone, even remarkable signs, cannot equate with, prove, engender, create, necessitate faith. Believing the supernatural truths that God has revealed in wisdom and in love to us is not the conclusion of a syllogism. It's not the end of an equation. It's not the sum total of parts. No sign can prove the articles of faith. No natural reflection, study, research, Wikipedia articles, book readings, podcasts, life experience, nothing that is natural can prove that what God is supernaturally and what he has revealed himself supernaturally as, revealing the truth, the supernatural truth of his identity to us, and what he does supernaturally within us, none of these things can be proven even under the influence and in the presence of signs. Why is this? It's because signs alone don't point to, prove supernatural reality. Because nothing that is on the order of nature, on the order of natural resources and phenomena, can demonstrate who God is, that he reveals about himself supernaturally to us. So to make it very concrete, sometimes we think that if we had just been present at Galilee, at the wedding feast of Cana, if we had just been present at the resurrection of Lazarus, when Jesus called forth his friend Lazarus from the tomb, who was dying, who had died and been in the tomb for several days, come forth, and Lazarus is resuscitated supernaturally, we think that we would definitely have believed who Jesus is and what Jesus does. But this is not the case. Even miraculous signs do not prove the faith. Nothing proves the faith. No natural reason, no logic, no research. The motivation, the formal object of faith, the reason why we believe in a supernatural, salvific way in what God has revealed to us, is simply the fact that God gives us the grace to believe him. The motive for supernatural faith is nothing other than God himself as revealing. The nature of miracles attract attention, but the distinction between miracles is that they, good as they are, always terminate in something natural. So for example, in the case of Lazarus, yes, those who have died coming back to life, that is supernatural. However, it is supernatural in modality only. Namely, those who have died, those whose bodies and souls are separated, usually don't come back together. However, the reality that is restored through the resurrection of Lazarus from death to life is itself a natural reality. Lazarus received natural life. Natural life, human life, is not supernatural. It is fully, really natural. Therefore, in the presence of a great miracle, a great sign, like the resurrection of Lazarus, we have something that is remarkable in its manner of occurring, but not in the term that has occurred. It does require supernatural means for someone who has died to come back to life. That doesn't happen naturally, but the life that is restored, that has come back, is itself natural. Similarly with this narrative, water being transformed into wine. Water usually doesn't become wine. This is beyond the capacity of water to do. Water doesn't, if you give it billions of years, water doesn't all of a sudden change its substantial identity. It remains what it is, and it becomes what it's capable of. One of the things water by itself is not capable of is becoming wine. And so God, Jesus, transforms the water into wine. That is supernatural in its modality. But in the reality of wine, wine is not itself supernatural. The term, the result of the changing of water to wine is natural itself. And this is where Our Lady, as always, tells us, points us to the most important truth for those who are beginning to believe, and miracles can begin the journey of faith to catch our attention, motivate us to give assent to divinely revealed propositions that save. There are motives of credibility, and miracles certainly are among them. Signs can certainly be amongst them. But, as Our Lady points out, the only true, real, sufficient, efficacious, formal reason for supernatural faith is nothing less than Jesus himself. Do whatever he tells you. So those of us who wish to grow in the theological virtue of faith, those of us who wish to deepen our life of faith, the most important step is a single step. It's to do whatever he tells you. It's to go to Jesus. It's not, per se, to spend a life looking for signs, for symbols that can verify, confirm, or prove our belief. Rather, it's simply to go to our Lord himself, the origin of faith, the object of faith, the destination of faith, and give ourselves to him. The beginning of faith is Jesus. The destination, the termination of faith is Jesus. No sign, no miracle can compel one to believe, because faith is nothing less than the union of the human intellect in love to God, and to believe God because God has revealed what he has said to us, and we know that God neither deceives nor can he be deceived. All of this is very important. It comes up frequently in our Sunday reflections here on the ECT channel, because we live in a time where belief and faith of a limited sort is heralded. No one today is going to say, stop believing. In fact, we think that believing is one of the most important things that the human person can do, and this is right. However, the unfortunate thing is often today we think that the act of believing is the most important thing, regardless of what the object of the act of belief is. It doesn't matter, it's often said, it doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe in something. Our Lady cuts through this wrong understanding of faith. She points us to a more profound understanding of faith, because she shows us that the object of faith is God. We believe because we know that God is wise, that he is truth, that he has revealed himself, and we cling to him. Do whatever he tells us. So if we want to believe in something sure, if we want to believe in something real, if we want to believe in something transformative that can help us through our difficulties, we go to Jesus. We start with Jesus. Do whatever Jesus tells you. That is the step, the origin, the originating step of faith. And what does Jesus tell us to do? He tells us to come to him and allow him to draw us to himself, to transform us entirely, and to give us a new identity in he himself, truth incarnate, who came for us men and for our salvation.